Hello, mi gente. Welcome back. My name is Yeury and today we have a big topic. Today we're going to talk about how I purchased my first multifamily investment property. But before we jump right into it, let me give you some information that will be very useful in order for you to know what I'm talking about. Do you guys know what the BRRRR strategy is? If you don't, that's okay. I'll quickly walk you through it so you know how that model works. The BRRRR strategy stands for buying a property at a discount, rehabbing it, renting it out, refinancing it, and then repeating the same process. That might not make a lot of sense, but let me explain it. Let me give you some example. Imagine you buy a distressed property. Typically, you want to find a distressed property so you can buy it either in cash or using hard money. Hard money is basically a company that lends you money to buy real estate. These hard money companies usually come with terms. They ask you to put down a certain percentage of the purchase price. They also charge a high interest rate, typically anywhere between 8 to 14%. Could be higher, could be smaller, depending on the deal, and it also depends on the person. It's all a relationship game. And then they also charge points. Points are usually a percentage of the purchase price. So if they say 2 points, it's basically 2% of the purchase price. One I specifically use asked me to put down 10% of the purchase price. He charged me 12% interest rate, and I also paid 2 points. Points are usually paid at the closing table, but my lender was nice enough to wrap it into my loan so I didn't have to pay it out of pocket at the closing table. Now, I just gave you a quick description on what a hard money lender is. There's a ton of them. The one I use is actually called Signature Lending LLC. Look them up. It's owned by Elliot. He's my lender. Reach out to him if you have deals and he'll fund your next project. He's an amazing person to work with. Question that you might be asking yourself is, how did you find this hard money lender? In reality, guys, I found the hard money lender through networking. I go to a lot of networking events, and thanks to my mentor, John, he was the one that actually recommended me to him. He put in a good word for me, and because of that, he was able to give me good terms for someone that was going through this BRRRR strategy of buying a property in cash for the first time. Because it is my first time, I am basically a liability to them because I don't have any experience, right? But thankfully to my mentor, I was able to get good terms. But anyways, going back to the BRRRR strategy, the BRRRR idea is that you want to buy a property at a good discount so you can add some instant equity to it when you rehab it, right? Imagine you buy a property for $250K, right? And you put in about $50K worth of rehab. But then when you rehab it and you rent it out, and when you do a refinance, the appraisal comes up with what the ARV is, it comes back to like $400K. Once you do a cash out refinance, it would allow you to cash out about 75% loan to value, which basically means they would give you 75% back of what the ARV is. So if the ARV is $400K, they'll give you back $300K. And with that $300K, you should be able to either have enough or close to enough to pay back your lender. That was a little bit confusing. But to summarize it, the reason why I love this model is because it allows you to grow your portfolio with either none of your own money or very little of your own money. And that's why I love this strategy and why I also recommend it to everybody. I wouldn't recommend it to people that are just getting started because it's a model that it's simple, but it's complicated at the same time. There's a lot of moving parts, and if you don't know how to run your numbers right, you can get into a very big mess. So, before you even attempt to do anything like that, make sure you read this book, the BRRRR book by David Greene. He is actually now the host of the Bigger Pockets podcast, the biggest real estate community. So make sure to check this book out. I read that book top to bottom, so I felt comfortable enough to jump into that strategy, even though I wouldn't recommend it to first-time buyers. I still went through it as a first-time buyer, but hey, everybody takes their own risk. I take a ton of risk, but my risks are also calculated because I educate myself on topics. I talk to a lot of people. I got myself a mentor, and I got friends that also invest in, So I don't just rely on my numbers. I talk to a lot of people that surround me to make sure that what I'm getting myself into is actually a good deal. Aside from that, if anything was confusing in terms of RV or rehab or loan to value or anything else, please go back to my first video where I talk a little bit more about these topics. Other than that, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so right now. Like this video, leave a comment below, and click that notifications icon to be notified when the next video drops. Alright guys, let's now talk about how I found the deal. This is a property that was actually listed on the market. It was being listed for $210,000. 5 minutes after I came on the market, I called the realtor myself and I said, hey, I just called her to get some basic facts about the property so it could allow me and give me an idea on how much I can offer based on the ARV and the rehab cost. Remember guys, we're all thinking about this, BRRRR strategy. I felt comfortable enough to make an offer for $225,000. And a lot of you guys might be asking yourselves is that why would you offer more than what the asking price is? In reality guys is that we're in a crazy market right now that everything is going over asking. So in order for me to secure that deal, even at $225,000, it was still going to be a good deal, at least for me. Contingency was that $225,000 and to cancel the open house. I didn't want all the investors to come look at it. I didn't want anybody else to look at it. I wanted to lock it in as soon as possible. Unfortunately, like an hour later, she called me back and said, hey, unfortunately, I spoke with the seller and he still wants to hold the open house. And I got 3 other calls from 3 other different investors with the same exact offer that you made us. $225,000 with no open houses. Anyways, because of that, I wasn't able to lock it in right away. So I had to show up to the open house. As I went through the open house, I went through the property. I was taking pictures and videos in order for me to reference it later on. After doing a whole run around of all the units, I honestly wasn't comfortable enough with everything, so I decided to do another run around of the property to look at it again. And as I was going through the second run around, guess what guys, I see my mentor there. I was so excited that I jumped up to him and I was like, hey John, what's up? This is the property that I want, blah blah blah. And I was telling him all these different facts about the property. I did another run around with him, and let me tell you guys, where the property is located, it's where he invests. So he owns a ton of properties in this market. At this point, I've been looking for 6 months for a property. And, thankfully he was nice enough and, he just wanted to help me grow that he decided to help me get this property. And after speaking with the realtors 2 days later, I was able to lock it in for $250,000. I know, $250,000. A lot of you might be asking yourselves again, what the hell? How's that a deal? It was $210 and you paid $250. Well, I paid $250, guys, but I'm only gonna put in about $60K in rehab, but it's gonna be worth over $400K. That's how I know it's a deal. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you pay as long as the deal makes sense. I personally don't care what I pay for a property as long as it aligns within my numbers. Anyways, I'm very thankful to my mentor because without him, I would not be able to get this property. So shout out to him, John. Thank you very much. To get a property on the contract, you usually have to put down an earnest money deposit. This money usually gets applied towards your closing cost. I had to put down, I didn't have to, but I wanted to put down a high number. So I put down $5,000 for an earnest money deposit or an EMD. In order to show the seller that I was a serious buyer. This amount got added into what I needed to bring to the closing table. And to show you guys exactly how much I paid out of pocket, I'm gonna show you exactly. I'm gonna bring the document from my lawyer that shows how much I paid for the property. So I had to bring to the table $26,905.31. This is excluding the $5,000 that I put down as an earnest money deposit. So if you add it all up, I'm all in for about $32,000. A lot of you might be asking yourselves oh, how did you come up with this money? Not everybody has that kind of money. And you're right. Half of that money came from wholesaling. So if you haven't looked at that, so if you don't know what wholesaling is, make sure to check out my first video on how I made $13K in 2 weeks. Part of that money came to that, and the other part came from my job and just me saving throughout college, through my internships and stuff like that. I'm a big saver. That's how I was able to come up with that money. On the other hand, I only needed to put down 10% of the purchase price. So 10% of $250,000 is $25,000 plus some closing costs and some fees and stuff. That's how I came up to $32,000. But then my lender is gonna cover all the rehab, and then I have to pay him 12% interest rate every month. But remember, I'm only holding this loan for about 6 months, and then I'm gonna refinance it with a bank to get a low interest rate. That is basically how I got the property, guys. And to give you some idea, what I plan to do right now is that I'm gonna hire some contractors so they could start working on the first floor, as that is the unit that needs the most work. And once that is done, I'll show you guys and I'll give you a breakdown on how much I paid for everything. And just to top it off, here's some pictures of how the house currently looks like. The outside of the house is actually pretty new. As you can see, there's new vinyl siding. Only thing I'll probably do on the outside is probably paint the decks for each unit and skim coat the foundation. But other than that, like, everything looks good on the outside. And on the next picture, this is the first unit. This is where most of the work will be done. But just mainly painting, refinishing those flooring. I don't like those kind of flooring. They're not my best taste. So I'll be changing those to like new LVP. Those are usually durable and good for tenants. And in the dining room area, the bathroom and kitchen needs to be redone. They're fully gutted right now. But other than that, it's just mainly cosmetic work. So that is a big plus when doing renovations. Anyways, guys, that is all I have for the video. If you find this video interesting, please remember to subscribe, like the video, and leave any comments below of any questions, any concerns, or any feedback that you have in regards to the video. And also make sure to follow me on my Instagram, as this is where I'll be keeping most up-to-date kind of news about my real estate journey. And if you could also share this video, share it to people that you think can benefit from watching something like this, because we want to spread this knowledge to everybody.